321. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On tonight's show, I have a returning guest, Vallibus. We've done a number of interviews together, particularly the most recent or last one was an investigation into Joe Rogan, considering that he got paid $100 million to move to Spotify recently. I think he started September 1st, as a matter of fact. But tonight we're going to talk about another interesting character by the name of Forrest Ackerman. Some people may have heard of him or vaguely know him, or science fiction buffs would know him very well, but he had a very long, storied career in Los Angeles. He lived in Los Feliz, and he collected a bunch of movie props and things like that, but he's mostly influential for being a literary agent for many famous science fiction writers, including Stephen King, L. Ron Hubbard, Isaac Asimov, Ray Bradbury, just some of these very well-known figures. So we're going to talk about him tonight. But Vallibus, are you there?
Yes, William, thanks for having me back again. I've been looking forward to this conversation. That's an excellent intro. I think unpacking the Forrest J. Ackerman world of literary science fiction is something that no one's really looked into that much.
I agree with that. You know, maybe it's known among certain movie people or things like that, but he had such an arc, his career in Los Angeles and around all these people, that pretty remarkable figure, somebody who lived a long time as well, born in 1916 in L.A., died 2008.
And I kind of look at him as the godfather of all science fiction, if you will.
I think that's an apt description, because he was involved in so many aspects of science fiction, not just books, but also, these Pulp Fiction type novels and just all kinds of different stuff.
Relevant today.
Yeah. I think I read too about him. He was in something like in 90 films as just like a highlight in some of these films. But anyway, so who was Forrest J. Ackerman for the public?
Well, I'd like to jump into that, but real quick on your introduction, again, great job. And I wanted to add a note regarding Joe Rogan and a quick little segue into today's conversation. So in that Spotify deal, I'm not sure if you paid attention, William, since we recorded that conversation. I've since noticed that Spotify decided to censor a good deal of Joe Rogan's episodes, notably anything with Alex Jones related, from their system.
Right, so they didn't even allow that to be uploaded to Spotify, right?
Right, so if you go to Spotify, you will not find those episodes. For example, episode, I think it's 911, actually, with Alex Jones. It's not on there. So, and it's kind of funny in this age of censorship, this is what we're seeing still. Pardon me. And when I was saying it's kind of relative to today's conversation, and how Forrest Ackerman's relative to our modern era, despite him being dead for years now.
Sorry about that. Please continue.
It's the fact that I was just quoting Ray Bradbury. Forrest J. Ackerman was the publisher of Bradbury's work, and was just quoting Bradbury the other day in Fahrenheit 451, in saying that I remember when firefighters used to put out fires.
Right, fascinating. Yeah.
The censorship and book burning of the dystopian world of Fahrenheit 451. Not all that dissimilar to our today's era, because I often like to joke that we're if you were to draw a Venn diagram in three circles with the "you are here" in the middle. For those folks of the interwebs don't know who Venn diagrams are, I'm sure you do, William.
Circles, yeah.
Yeah. I joked, put yourself in the middle, and then put one circle is 1984. The other circle is Fahrenheit 451, and the other circle is A Brave New World, and you're right in the middle, 2020.
Right. No, it's very true. And there's even more crazy dystopian elements, because it's like things go into the memory hole, right? So you can throw in 1984's elements, but also the fact that some of these, like, you're not told that you're being ghosted. Like some of my YouTube channel, YouTube went in and broke down, and they don't recommend any of my stuff anymore to somebody. They immediately put it on to like Fox News or something, in the kind of, if my show ends, it goes to Fox News. So there's all kinds of weird games they're playing without telling you. There's all kinds of strange, elements with YouTube.
I think the orders are delay, deter, and deny any sort of person from seeing this information. In this instance with Joe Rogan and Spotify, they denied it. They said, we're not putting it on our system. And that, again, is very dystopian Ray Bradbury-like. So
Yeah.
his publisher, Forrest Ackerman, is known throughout every literary circle as, a very major figure. He's not maybe known publicly in like society and a pop culture reference or anything, but the guy is responsible from everything from monsters to aliens to Star Wars stuff to comic books. I mean, the comic book era of today, where our largest films in the movie theaters are Marvel Comics, and DC tries to keep up sometimes. Those two comic books grew out of this literary club.
So, right, it's incredible. And I think, what was the name of his literary club? Do you I think it was called, I do have the name. It's the Los Angeles Science Fantasy Society, right?
There you go. Yeah.
That was the weekly thing. And so Hubbard was there, but also Jack Parsons. My understanding is that Jack Parsons was also somebody who attended in the audience, who is, associated with Crowley. So you've got these two Crowley figures that we know of.
Yeah, that's a great point, William. And to just go on top and add some additional information there on top of that point is the fact that if you just listen to Forrest Ackerman himself, he tells you the entire club dabbled in that kind of activity, he says.
Right.
He says so a lot of people know Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology today, but back in the early onset of Scientology, it went through a couple different iterations.
Right.
And in one of those iterations, the first one, Ackerman says himself, they all joined Scientology, referencing the literary or the Science Fantasy Society.
Right.
That's the context of the statement. And, I often wonder if that jump to Scientology at that time in the mid 1950s, I think we'll call it 1954, maybe.
Well, I think that Dianetics was 48, and then Scientology was 1950. But Hubbard himself was writing tons of science fiction going back to the 30s, right?
Oh, I mean, he's one of the most printed science fiction authors in history. Just go into any Scientology center, they'll tell you that.
Right.
I've been into a few of them. They'll be more than happy to tell you all about L. Ron Hubbard's sci-fi path, as well as his his writing achievements, as well as the other stuff. But the 1954 reference, I was putting a marker on that day, is because I think that's the time when they saw that first iteration. So as you said, kind of 47, 48 was the onset of Scientology as being Dianetics. And then he toured the country, was trying to sell Dianetics, and found out that that's got to pay taxes. L. Ron Hubbard, that is, has to pay taxes and all these other things. So he started making changes, putting out fires as they were coming along in his little process to create Scientology. And in those early iterations, the entire literary society here of the Science Fiction Society of Forrest J. Ackerman was apparently a member. Now, I just wonder if it was an easy jump for them because they were all Thelemites, like we're OTO or Thelemites, where L. Ron Hubbard came from, and Jack Parsons. And they just kind of, they just jumped over like, well, Hubbard's doing this new thing, so we'll go do this new thing with Hubbard.
Right. It's really fascinating, too. And also, I think it was Robert Heinlein, Stranger in a Strange Land. I think he was in that group or somewhere around. I don't know if he was author or was the literary agent, that Ackerman was his literary agent, but he was definitely in that circle. And apparently there's a lot of Thelema in Stranger in a Strange Land, and that was the only book that Manson would let his family read. You know that?
Oh, I did not know that fact, actually, and that's a nice Charles Manson fact. I'm actually a big student of the Charles Manson story.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that book, though. Yeah, I'm familiar with that book. I just didn't know that was I think if he wasn't in that club, he's definitely in that same group of people.
No question. Yeah. No, Asimov, Heinlein.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you're right. I don't have the exact list in front of me, but I'm fairly certain he was in that club. There are a number of interesting characters outside of just L. Ron Hubbard in that club, and Ray Bradbury may be one of the most popularly known ones. Isaac Asimov as well. But there's the number of intelligence agents in that little club is quite astounding. Well, first of all, L. Ron Hubbard's college roommate was one of these individuals, named the science fiction writer by the name of, he wrote under the name Cordwainer Smith. His real name was Paul Linebarger. He was a U.S. Army officer and OSS officer in World War II who literally wrote the book on psychological warfare. It's called
Really? Wow.
It's called Psychological Warfare.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Psychological Warfare, a World War II era reprint. You can go find it at your local library or bookstore today, or Kindle for $3.99.
Wow.
Not a plug for Amazon. I'm just being facetious. But yeah, so the guy literally first published in 1948. This is a guy in that group. Now, no one at the time, I don't think, contemporaneously knew that he was Corbin Smith, but the guys in the club did, right?
Right.
The science fiction club most certainly would have known that.
I think so.
And
I can confirm that Heinlein was in Ackerman's group, so you can include Heinlein in that group. So.
Well, I've ensured that I put him near the top of the list because I need to know more about that character because I'm familiar with the book and I'm familiar with some of the other characters in the club. But this club is something I've been kind of looking at for a while, and I've said to myself, why is nobody questioning this?
Right. Why isn't there a book on that? Because I didn't come across anything on that so influential. The science fiction that came out of the comic books and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And the mind control, because that psychological operations, I mean, don't you think all that stuff bled into Dianetics and Scientology?
I was going to ask you the same question. If you want my opinion first, I'd say absolutely.
Sure. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, look at a Scientology operation. Look at some of to be honest with you, I've gone into a number of these visitors centers, orgs they call them or whatever. Everyone in there just kind of have a mind control look on their face, if you ask me. It's like going to reference from my world, a basic training organization, going to see military troops in basic training. They all kind of have a mind control look on their face because, I mean, in a certain aspect, it is mind control.
Yeah, I mean, definitely sociological testing.
Yeah, you all get a haircut. Everybody gets the same haircut.
You get that psychological test. There's something wrong with you. The solution is Scientology. And then you go out and then you become an acolyte, like an evangelist for it, and you get paid. It's just really crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and L. Ron Hubbard, being a naval officer, certainly used a lot of his knowledge from his military experiences in the construction of his little organization known as Scientology. But at the same time, like, it's kind of strange to me that it is so much like a military organization.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a military organization. They likened themselves into the Jesuits. When I talked to one of the bigwigs in Scientology who knew Hubbard, I actually have him interviewed on William Ramsey Investigates. I can't remember his name right now. He's actually in that same show with Forrest Ackerman. Because you know the video of Forrest Ackerman where it's people who knew L. Ron Hubbard? Yeah. Jerry Armstrong was his name. He said they were like Jerry, Gerry is in William Ramsey Investigates, but he said that they likened themselves to the Jesuits, like a Jesuitical order, or the Sea Org was like the Jesuits.
I'm shocked, William. This is as much as I've studied Scientology as well in the process. I've never heard or seen that statement, so I'm excited to see that because that's exactly how I view them. I mean, I view them as a military organization. I actually think they're one of the most cunning intelligence operations I've ever seen.
Well, it became, and there's like an intel, and that's the whole thing about how, have you ever heard the story that Hubbard's World War II service record is fake? Have you ever heard that?
I have heard that, and I can understand the arguments put forth on both sides. I'd like to get your opinion on it.
Well, gosh, I think that some of his stuff may be faked because if you look at some of the early pictures of Hubbard, he thought of himself as like an intel officer. There's pictures of him with a fedora, looking very kind of intel-like, right. And all that stuff bled into Scientology, and I heard that those connections were still there, and he actually ran his organization, certain parts of it. He had his own intel organization in Scientology, right?
So yes, he does. And I'm not surprised by any of your assessment because he definitely told a lot of stories. So his college roommate, Corbin Smith, a.k.a. Paul Linebarger, the OSS officer for the U.S. Army, he was the one. Hubbard stole a lot of his biography and told everybody he was fluent in like 8 languages and had like 7 degrees. Those were Paul Linebarger stats. Those weren't L. Ron Hubbard stats. So he definitely told a lot of stories. So I think you're definitely onto something there. And they have East German Stasi style, SS officer style operation because they ran an entire operation on the U.S. government called Operation Snow White in the 1970s. This is ultimately how David Miscavige, the current leader of Scientology, got into power.
Right. And I mean, I think that the person who I recollect who said that Hubbard's history was Fake was Fletcher Prudy, the author of The Secret Team, a guy who was, a researcher into the murder of JFK. But the video that both Ackerman and Jerry Armstrong are in is called Secret Lives, and it was from Channel 4 from 1997. So you can see both Ackerman talk and Armstrong. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, you're fine. The whatchamacallit, we can put a link there on that. I'm looking it up right now. Secret Lives?
Yeah, Secret Lives is the name of it, and it's on YouTube.
Oh, yes, I see that. I got it right here. Oh, L. Ron Hubbard's assistant. Yeah, I mean, these are the people that I suspect have the most knowledge of what's actually going on in that organization. One of my favorite things to watch, just relative to Scientology, is when David Miscavige made his almost only public interview ever, and that's with Ted Koppel on, I think it was Nightline, is it? And it was maybe 1992 or so, and he tries to out Koppel, Ted Koppel. As far as he's at one point in time, you have to wonder who's interviewing who here, because David Miscavige is obviously not enjoying the interview.
Wow, interesting.
So yeah, I have a lot of questions about that organization, and again, the origins of that are found in Forrest Ackerman Literary Club, where the entire club, apparently, according to Forrest Ackerman, was a member.
Wow, yeah.
In the early stages. And then, it makes you wonder if that goes back to Thelema, because as you pointed out, Jack Parsons was present, and that is supposedly a known fact.
That's how he met Hubbard, I think, was through going to these science fiction meetings. So I think that's where the whole history started, where they were together, or they were in Pasadena at the Cult of Thelema or whatever. What was it? They called it Agape Lodge and all that stuff.
Agape Lodge of the OTO, correct? The Ordo Templi Orientis.
Yes, correct.
So there's another story that L. Ron Hubbard liked to tell, was that he was an undercover FBI agent sent into that organization.
Right, that's the cover story. And there's an article saying he thought and knew that they were engaged in black magic, but he was an intel person there to investigate, which might be partially true.
I suspect it is partially true, and this is why. There's loads of declassified information regarding a number of agencies investigating Jack Parsons' activities between the years of 1947, I think, whenever he allegedly blew himself up in his garage in 1951. Right. So he had a lot of heat during that time, a lot of different agencies investigating him for a lot of different things. And it was the early onset of the communists' McCarthy hearings. So at that same time, people like Ronald Reagan were already undercover for the FBI in Hollywood.
Yeah, so he got popped because he was actually Parsons was living after the war, I think in Redondo Beach of all places, and then he went, he took some information and gave it to an Israeli agent, or there was the possibility that some of his technological stuff was leaked or given, or he was going to work for an Israeli agent. And so all those records are there. And it's kind of funny or amusing darkly, because in those FBI files you mentioned, he's clearly running circles around the FBI agent. They call his group Thelma, like the name Thelma, right, not Thelema. And they kind of got into it, but he said he was done with it to the FBI. He was still heavily involved in occultism and all kinds of stuff. I think that the Babylon Working was somewhere in late 40s, after the war. So he was doing the Babylon Working with Hubbard, and he made the Oath of the Antichrist and left that. So he was still heavily involved in occultism, but the FBI didn't really key into it. So he was clearly outwitting them, I think.
No, I think that's a great assessment. He was playing both sides against the middle. It seems pretty clear, like you said, he was playing the FBI while allegedly working, for them in that operation.
Yeah,
there certainly has the hallmarks of exactly how you just described it. And again, that whole group, though, it's never just one person in that group, because you start going down the line, and there was a fellow by the name of Kurt Siodmak, and he was a science fiction writer, very popular at the time, movies, motion pictures, all the whole works, everything science fiction. And he was an OSS officer in World War II.
Gotcha.
He was part of that group. So again, this is immediately following the war too. So, you have a whole bunch of these guys sitting in one literary group in essentially, I don't know if it was in Pasadena, but Los Angeles. And, they have a very interesting, lineage that runs, again, to today, because the next guy you have in there is Isaac Asimov. And Isaac Asimov, well, actually, one more note on Kurt. One thing I just remembered on Kurt Siodmak. So he got recruited into the OSS. He was already a science fiction writer. When he got recruited into the OSS, he wrote a book called Donovan's Brain. And on your note to how L. Ron Hubbard was kind of playing the FBI at times, it seems, and other folks for that matter. Well, the OSS tracked down the author of this book called Donovan's Brain, and they thought it was about, it was a book about mind control, and they thought somehow this was somehow related to the guy who just started the OSS, William S. Donovan. So, to their inept abilities to accomplish anything effective, they went and recruited this guy because they thought somehow this guy's fiction novel called Donovan's Brain about mind control had something to do with their boss. That's a true story, by the way. To speak to the ineptness of some of these operations and investigations.
Just to let you know, this fantasy society, the LASFS, still exists, and it's in the Valley off of Burbank Boulevard.
Oh, interesting. Nice.
By Studio City, kind of close to Universal Studios.
Yeah, I'm not at all too surprised it still exists. They seem to have a pretty healthy fan base amongst this crowd. And I mean, just look at Isaac Asimov. He's still considered very much today a very notable person within science fiction writing, especially. I don't know if Isaac Asimov, I don't know if he was involved in these type of dealings, but as far as how this club still connects to today, Isaac Asimov Jr., I think was his name, his son, Isaac Asimov Jr., and he just about 20 years ago in the 90s in the San Francisco area got arrested with the largest collection of child pornography in history, at least at the time. And thanks to folks like the U.S. Attorney in the district, Robert Mueller of recent FBI and Russia investigation fame, infamy. Yeah, it was good. Yeah. Yeah, you read my mind. Infamy is what I meant there. You're right. That guy let him off. I don't know how you can decide that somebody such as that. William, this is how disturbing it is. And if you read the investigation notes and the documents available, they identified at least hundreds of children in the photography and videos, if not thousands. And Robert Mueller said, pass. So, this group, despite it starting, close to 100 years ago, and because these guys were obviously writing before the World War II, this was a group that existed before Hubbard joined it, obviously. Hubbard kind of came in there after the war, though, and as Forrest Ackerman, the group's leader, says, he kind of took it over. Like, everyone was kind of enamored by L. Ron Hubbard. Because like I said, so a lot of the comic book stuff and the science fiction from that, came back before the war. And I think L. Ron Hubbard, if I remember correctly, in that interview we referenced before with Forrest Ackerman talking about L. Ron Hubbard, he discusses how he met Hubbard, but I think he also touches base that Hubbard had previously sent him materials before. He just didn't look at it or something like that, because I believe for a while Hubbard was on maybe the East Coast. Before the war, when he got sent to San Diego, I believe.
Wow, I mean, what's Asimov's most famous writing? Isn't there one that he's really?
He's definitely in that same ballpark with Heinlein and Arthur C. Clarke. I think they're considered some of the original, spaceships and science fiction guys.
What is it?
Granted, Jules Verne existed before then.
There was one series of books my friends used to read. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't. I'm looking it up right as we speak now. I couldn't honestly tell you.
Foundation series. I think that was 1951.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not at all familiar with Isaac Asimov's writings. I mean, I'm familiar with him and some of what he's accomplished. He's often credited with he's kind of actually credited with inventing the rocket, I think. I don't, I know there's, yeah.
I know for sure that Parsons was involved in that, but Asimov was like he was also kind of a biochemist. I think he was a professor of biochemistry at the time. Man, the guy was super prolific.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and I think his son was living off of his father's inheritance, basically his proceeds for some of those activities when he collected the America's largest child porn collection.
It's incredible. But did you ever see a connection between Ackerman and Arthur C. Clarke? Because I thought that Clarke was connected to Ackerman, and Clarke was really something else too.
No, I don't know of Arthur C. Clarke. I haven't seen any direct connection, but yes, Isaac, as we're talking here. So Heinlein, the one you mentioned his name before, he wrote Starship Troopers along with Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke. Right. They were all involved in that project.
Fascinating. Yeah. So these guys, I mean, these guys are huge.
Credited as the writer, but they were all in a group together hanging out like when he wrote that.
Well, did you hear rumors of Ackerman? There was something, I think it was on Wikipedia, that he was sending sexually graphic letters to underage children. Do you ever come across that?
Oh, I've heard lots of rumors about Ackerman. I haven't seen anything with as much certainty as Arthur C. Clarke. Didn't he get banished to India?
No, Clarke went to Sri Lanka, and then I know for a fact that there was a suppressed article about him picking up 12-year-old boys at the local ping pong club, which I included in my book, Children of the Beast. Yeah, but then if you follow Clarke, you follow Clarke right to.
That made your book, Children of the Beast?
Correct.
I didn't know you went. I haven't read it. I apologize for having so many questions this late in conversations we've had, William, about reading that book. In regards to my interest of Thelema specifically, I just didn't realize you went that deep in it, I guess.
Oh, no. Clarke, he knew all the illuminated numerology, 77, 11. He included all that stuff with Kubrick, and him connected to Ackerman. It's just an incredible arc of influence. And, I mean,
right.
if you read Clarke's stuff, it's pretty clear he knows all that illuminated, and the monolith itself was something that he created. Do you know that in 2001 Clarke and Kubrick were going to use the cube of Saturn, and they changed it to the monolith for that important scene?
I think I actually heard or read something that you wrote or said that from that fact. Yeah, I looked that up. It was interesting. Yeah, I think there's a lot of that occult. After hearing that, I looked into it further. I think I agree. There's a lot of occult symbolism, and especially in that movie specifically.
Tons of occult symbolism, but the dates and stuff in his works and in his stuff, and like the new moon was called Lucifer, and its light will shine on the earth forever. This guy's talking about Lucifer, like high level, hyper intelligent Luciferianism. Clarke wasn't.
Right, and I mean, there's, as you said, and I agree here as well. There's a number of reports with him in young boys that eventually caused him to be basically, folks in the United Kingdom are basically like, look, Arthur, you're going to need to go find some other place to live, like in Sri Lanka. They'll let you do things with young boys there, apparently.
There's a direct quote that I have of him that he said to a reporter that it's not a big deal. I just pay them a little bit, and that's it. He basically admitted that was his thing.
Right, and it's kind of disturbing to think about it. I laugh from an ironic standpoint that we don't catch on to these things quicker as a society or as people, generally speaking, that we don't listen to the words these people say. If he's going to admit it, you know what I mean? I'm happy to take the man at his word.
Well, I think that a lot of it is these other media figures there. The journalists don't look into these things. They don't think they're important, and they aren't willing to contradict famous people or challenge them. I think that's what's been going on for decades.
Sure. So in reference to Asimov, Heinlein, Arthur C. Clarke, and the literary club of Forrest J. Ackerman, and Parsons' presence in that club as well at times. So Parsons, and Hubbard didn't seem to have any qualms about telling everybody in the world that they invented solid-state rocket fuel via a thelemic sex magic ritual in the California desert. Correct? Is that a good assessment?
Well, I think he was influenced by occultism to make certain stuff for sure. Whether it came to him in some kind of occult ritual, I don't know. I've never heard.
Well, I think specifically, and I'll have to see if I can dig up the statements from Parsons. He makes no qualms about it. He's not a chemist. He didn't go to university, and he developed solid state rocket fuel via sex magic rituals of Thelema in the California desert. And if you look at what this club's business is, it's a lot of science fiction guys. They're all interested in kind of the same subject. I oftentimes wonder what really is the organizing principle here.
Good point. That's interesting.
So, on down the line of people that I wanted to discuss with you, more in a modern sense from this club, bringing it more to our current era, and again, psychological operations. There's, I just drew a blank on his name. Oh, Michael Aquino, the colonel from the Army, the U.S. Army Colonel Michael Aquino, who again, and now World War II, it was Paul Linebarger, who was the U.S. Army psychological operations expert. In Vietnam War, though, it was Michael Aquino.
Interesting.
And Michael Aquino wrote Star Wars fan fiction for Forrest Ackerman.
I didn't know that. I think he actually published it. Yeah, I mean, he definitely harassed Forrest Ackerman about it. You can find Forrest Ackerman talking about that, how he's always tracking him down, trying to give him more work. Did he write it under his own name or a pen name, a pseudonym?
To the best of my knowledge, it was probably, I mean, if I usually think about it, it's probably a pseudonym, but I don't think Forrest Ackerman mentions it in the interview that I watched.
Interesting.
But
wasn't there a connection between Ackerman and LaVey as well, or was it just Aquino?
I don't know a direct connection off the top of my head between LaVey and Ackerman, but yeah, definitely LaVey and Aquino. I mean, Aquino's organization is a offshoot, correct, of LaVey's?
Yes, that is true.
Yeah, and I don't know if LaVey officially identifies his organization to be an offshoot of Thelema or OTO, but he recognizes it in like a honorary fashion, if you will.
Interesting. So LaVey was friends with Ackerman. So they were. There's actually pictures of them together. So I don't know if he was. Yeah, I don't know. I'll put it in the show notes. I'm going to send it to you right now. But
I mean, I'm not surprised because Anton LaVey was very, very connected into Hollywood in the LA regions. For example, if you open up the front page of his quote unquote, I don't know, what do they call it? The Bible? I don't know, whatever they call it.
The Satanic Bible or whatever?
Yeah, whatever they call that thing. Mm-hmm. If you open it up, he dedicates it to two people. Jane Mansfield, who was decapitated about 1965,
right,
and in some weird automobile accident. And the other individual he dedicated to is Tuesday Weld, the actress.
Fascinating. And she was like notoriously to be from a witchcraft family, right?
Oh, yeah, supposedly. And she even took it to a new level, trying to make a joke about that in the 70s and wearing like a witch hat on TV because it was a kind of a common rumor that was often traveling around at the time. And also in the 1970s in a magazine, I think, called Modern Witchcraft, Anton LaVey is quoted as saying that he dedicated it to Tuesday Weld because she's involved in the rituals.
I think it
didn't go into context, but I couldn't hear you, William. Did I lose you?
Oh, I was just saying that I think Dave McGowan. I think that's where I remember my Weld references from Dave McGowan.
Oh, he definitely went into that story for sure. Yep. There's some other information out there regarding Tuesday Weld, but I actually think the quote I just mentioned about being involved in the rituals, I actually read in a book called, give me a moment, Sinister Forces by Peter Levenda.
The series, the 3-part series, yes.
3-part series. One of them is strictly about Manson for the most part. One of them is kind of the ghost yard of America and kind of deals with the ancient architecture, the mounds, the quote unquote Indian burial mounds, which is an interest of mine. That's a real focus of number 1. I think number 2 is the Manson situation. Number 3. So I think it was in number 1, maybe. Levenda goes into some of that witchcraft history of the Weld family and the history of, the witchcraft. The whole ongoing plot of the first novel is America's got a lengthy and extensive witchcraft history that we just pay no attention to.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But I think
I'm sorry. Continue.
I think Lavenda himself, though, right? I know he's not a science fiction writer per se, and he's not in this group that I have any kind of knowledge of, but he's definitely in that same milieu of occult activities, right?
No question. Yeah, he worked at the Magical Child in New York. He was part of all these early 1970s, 1980s conflicts within the occult community. He wrote the Necronomicon. Probably more than likely wrote the Necronomicon under a fake name.
Right.
And signed it with his name. I mean, there's a document. If it's legit, that means that he applied to have the copyright at the U.S. Copyright Office for the Necronomicon, which is not a real book. It was based upon H.P. Lovecraft, and so he just made a real book, made a book out of something that was science fiction, if you want to call Lovecraft science fiction or horror. But
and if you want to hear someone kind of squirm in their chair during an interview, just over a podcast, listen to Peter Lavenda answer the question on whether or not he wrote the Necronomicon.
There is an audio of him being interviewed on one of these shows, on I forgot, Coast to Coast, I think it is, and it's supposedly Simon, but it's the voice has been changed, and it sounds. Some people have said it's pretty much Lavenda. So. Right.
I know. I'm actually very familiar with what you're talking about, and I would agree with you. That is Lavenda. Yeah. So in Lavenda, even though not.
But it's incredible. Ackerman is tied to L. Ron Hubbard. He's tied to Jack Parsons. He's tied to LaVey. He's tied to Aquino. He's tied to all of these kind of, dark occultists.
The greatest science fiction writers of the era are, as a result, an associate of Forrest Ackerman in his club.
Yeah,
and, including, again, it's a lot more so speculation than anything else. But I think a lot of that same club, who some members were definitely associated with the production of the comic book scene. The comic books in the 1930s, around 1932 or so, the science fiction field, these same guys were writing science fiction. They were the ones who were also producing the comic books of that area, the pulp fiction comic book stuff, the early onset before Marvel and DC. And the comic books kind of grew out of that same club too. And you got to look; these are some of the most profitable films we have today, right? I mean, they're
these series, Batman and all these things came out of that stuff.
I think Avengers Endgame was the largest grossing film ever.
Wow, incredible, man.
I mean, and if you look at it in a very kind of, again, there are characters that are involved in that process that are most certainly part of the Forrest Ackerman Club, and their Forrest Ackerman and gang are, again, it's the same people who do the comics and then the science fiction at the time, all the rockets and space and aliens, all those things, the alien invader type of things.
And Ackerman himself, he was a collector of all this stuff. So he was collecting memorabilia, movie memorabilia, comic book memorabilia, and actually had a museum. I think it was in his house in Los Feliz in LA. People used to go. But I think it was all auctioned off. And one of the big purchasers was Peter Jackson of West Memphis 3 infamy.
Wow.
Big supporter of Damien Eccles, yes. I
did not know that. Always some new facts talking to you, William. That's a good one right there. Yeah, the more I learn about William, more I learn about Peter Jackson, I definitely question.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions there. Yeah, there's a lot of questions. I heard his wife is, there's rumors about his wife being heavily involved in the occult, but those are rumors only.
Well, I mean, I'm not a Lord of the Rings Hobbit type of guy, but those scream like some sort of occult type of undertones to me. I don't know the specifics of what they would be because I've never seen who would know how to decipher it, to analyze or anything. But I'm just saying that whole underworld kind of situation they have going there, it's almost like a story under society, kind of like how the occult operates. I don't know. Maybe I'm going too far there, but I have a lot of questions about after reading your material in the West Memphis 3 and learning about his activities, essentially financing murderers of children to get out of prison. Then I have a lot of questions about the guy.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions there. He has, I think it was Ken Me, one of my fellow researchers, found a picture of Peter Jackson with an occult tattoo that was designed by Damien Eccles.
Oh, these tattoos.
Yeah, he's got those tattoos, the same ones Johnny Depp and all these other characters have.
I didn't know Peter Jackson had that one too, huh?
Yeah, very similar. It's with the whole sigil on the inside and the Theban script on the outside, a circle.
Right. Well, I mean, so you look at the Marvel Comics situation, and again, Peter Jackson, that's a huge connection as far as, his weight in the film industry.
Yeah.
And again, the Marvel movies, these are the biggest movies. DC, same thing. And if you look and see that where this originated from and kind of the group it came from, I don't think it's that hard of a big of a jump to start asking more questions on why is it called Marvel Comics? Is it a tribute to Jack Parsons? Because DC Comics decided to name their big group the Suicide Squad, right? And Suicide Squad is Jack Parsons' club.
Yeah, a very well-known fact, yes.
So these are the questions I ask her. What is the actual connections there? And again, it's not direct. It's not. There's not a great print record, if you will. And no one's writing down notes. Me, Jack Parsons, and all these other guys all did this right here, right at this time, But there is definitely enough information there to cast. There's smoke. Typically where there's smoke, there's fire. And one of those other things connected there was drawing to the current day and our modern era of, situations in our society with occult aspects and occult groups. Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. These people have direct connections to these literary people we were just discussing in the Jack Parsons squad, if you will. So one of Jack Parsons' his top assistant or partner in the Suicide Squad that developed solid-state rocket fuel was a man by the name of Roger or Frank Molina.
Frank Molina, M-A-L.
Frank Molina. And then Roger's the son who's married to Ghislaine Maxwell's sister, who Roger, Ghislaine, and Roger's wife, Ghislaine's sister, made one of the early search engines for the internet.
Right. So they were involved in technology. But the Suicide Squad was only 3 people. It was Foreman, Molina, and Parsons. So
yeah, I think in direct order, Molina was number 2 in that sequence. So yeah, you're right. He's a very important man in the story.
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah. Oh, very important, critical. There's pictures of them together: Parsons, Molina, Foreman.
Oh yeah.
All down at the Arroyo in Pasadena, where they used to test all the rockets and stuff.
Yeah, and that's allegedly again how that solid-state rocket fuel was developed with those 3 guys. Actually, I think at one point in time they added a 4th one later, a Chinese fellow. And then the U.S. government later shipped him to China, and that's how China got their space program. Probably a different story altogether.
Not surprised at all.
right.
I mean, the other kicker is these guys are like Parsons is sending letters to Werner von Braun after the war, asking him questions. Yeah, so that
was before the war, though, right? It wasn't after the war, right?
Maybe it was before. Yeah, maybe it was. But I think they met person to person somewhere because he was right there in Pasadena. I've got to go back and look at those facts, but.
No, you're on track, though. You're definitely on track because they definitely have a strange relationship, and the one that I've never really been able to draw a great conclusion on how they met or when they met. But they had a pen pal situation going on for a while, for sure.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, there's just that was like a nexus point for so much influence on 20th century was just Forrest Ackerman's science fiction club. That's how he probably, that's how he got talent. Is people would come to the club and then he would go, "Hey man, do you want me to publish that?" And I think Ackerman was very wealthy. I don't think he was hurting for money.
No, it didn't seem to be. And even though in his later years, I don't think he was that active in the production of things, but he's considered such a figure in their community, and he had, I'm sure, rights to things, et cetera, that it wasn't really an issue for him.
Yeah, pretty remarkable. It's interesting that I don't think many people have really keyed into him as such an important figure. Maybe within the film community, but not kind of a like
No,
a larger cultural history. There are biographies about him, but they didn't seem to be very substantial.
yeah, he definitely operated under the radar, and I think he enjoyed doing that. There's obviously the people within that community. I think he's very well known. You don't know anybody who, if you were to mention Forrest Ackerman to a science fiction fan or monster fan, they would know who he is. I think because
Yes,
I mean,
I think you're right.
even into his elder age, he produced that Monsters of Science Fiction magazine or newsletter, and he lived to the age of 92. So I mean, he had
Right.
a long time of producing and publishing things. I think he did some writing himself, but yeah, he had the mansion of all of his little artifacts. So the guy, I don't think the guy was hard up for money, and again, he may not be a well-known public figure generally speaking, but he's certainly a well-known figure.
Yeah, no question. No question. Is there any? I mean, we've been talking about this for 45 minutes. Is there anything that you'd like to kind of finish up with, or you'd like to anything I missed, or?
I think we've done a good job, William, of drawing the question marks that probably need some more inspection regarding the kind of elements that we're dealing with today in some of these occult organizations and groups and people. But they clearly didn't start yesterday. They clearly have been going on for a while, as we've kind of drawn some of those lines here in this conversation.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I was kind of surprised to see all the occultism in Arthur C. Clarke, the numerology that he knew. So these guys are probably cross-fertilizing their ideas from the occult.
Oh, yeah.
All mind control goes into their science fiction. I mean, it's interesting. Clarke was a science fiction writer, but he also came up with the idea of the satellite. So you can say all these satellites that are being put up in space come back to Clarke's paper on that, the idea of a geosynchronous object floating over the Earth. I mean, so
good point. Yep.
And just like a final note, one of my favorite short stories ever was written by Ray Bradbury. It's called "The Sound of Thunder." So if anybody out there has a chance and doesn't mind reading a short story, it's really good about going back in time. It's really an interesting story. Sound of Thunder.
I will check that story out. I actually don't know that Ray Bradbury story. I do appreciate Ray Bradbury's stories. I'm definitely not saying I haven't enjoyed the book Fahrenheit 451 before. I just question what a lot of these folks are doing in their off time and what they're putting into these storylines. Because again, as we identified, they have the U.S. military's experts in psychological warfare within this group.
So anybody, do you have any social media people can reach out to you? Any online emails or they want to?
Sure. Any folks of the interwebs that want to contact me, challenge any of my statements or ask me further questions on these things or simply just want to have a conversation, I can be reached at Twitter at Operation GCD and my website at www.operationgcd.com or on email at operationgcd@gmail.com. That's G Golf Charlie Delta Garbage Can Dude.
Is that what GCD stands for?
That's what G. My cynical nature of how I view the world. Essentially.
But okay, Vallibus, thanks so much. We talked about Forrest Ackerman tonight, all of his interesting, strange connections, and I really appreciate your time. Really interesting conversation.
William, great talking to you again. Always a nice time. Let me know anytime you want to have a conversation, and I will make time.
That was great, man. Great to talk with you. Take care. Have a great weekend.
Out here. Thank you. Okay.